Good afternoon. It is October 1st, and we have had a little bit of change to our solar activity. Had a good rain shower move through this morning, but we should start to see some partly clearing skies this afternoon and clearing into this evening hours. And we have had some CMEs this morning, and you can see those reflected here. For the large part, they're predicting it's going to be a miss because it's on the big ones are on an incoming sunspot grouping. But let's go in and look at what's happened overnight. We have had significant flaring over the last 24 hours. And I'm going to back this up just a little bit here. We've had two that have reached M class stage. One of them is an M class 2.4. All of these have been long duration. That means we're going to get a little bit more elevated wind off these. And they're apt to give us a little bit of boost as far as auroral activity. Some of these you can tell there's some broken spots here that are more than likely have some geomagnetic activity with them that are going to cause some CMEs. There's something there with that. Looking at our sunspots, we have 51 and 52. These are producing a steady stream of C and M class flares. We have 53 that is here and it is a little active. 48 is not doing much. 49 is beta class. 50 is 50 is capable of producing. We've got 54 over here and 57, which is not doing much. Now, 49 is beta class, 50 is beta gamma, 51 is beta delta, and 52 is beta. 53, 54, 40, 47, 48 are all alpha class. They can produce a flare, but it's not as likely. So let's go down and look at these. 47 is around the limb. It is dissipating, but it is the number of spots are down, but the size of the sunspot is growing. So that might make it around the limb, but it's out of our reach now. 48 is not doing much. It's just holding steady. 49 is holding steady, but it is got a 45% chance, and it has produced a C-class flare. 50 has produced two C-class flares. It's at a 75% chance it's going to continue to produce C-class flares today, and a 20% chance at an M-class flare. 51, whichever one in 51 is, I'm not quite sure. One group is up here. One is 51, one is 52, and I'm not sure which one's which because they're right beside each other. 51 is beta delta. So I'm going to assume this is beta delta. So this one's probably 51 right here. And it is 70% chance of producing a C-class flare, 30% chance of an M-class flare. It has produced a C-class flare today. 52 is a new region, and I'm going to say that would be this region right here. It is beta class. It is 75% chance of getting an M class or C class, 25% chance of an M class. It has produced an M.2. So I'm going to say that's probably this right here. And it has produced C and M class flares today. And this is region 53. It is an alpha class. It is not doing much. They don't think it's going to do anything at all. And 54 is 0% chance of doing anything at all. They aren't even ranking it as it's an alpha class. nothing there. So let's go look at CMEs. Now, the majority of the CMEs since the 30th have gone out and away from us. As you can see here, we have a super, super, super dense eruption. It's coming out from 51, 52, and it is going away from us. It is not going to impact us much. But if you look at the cactus view, you can see there is plasma moving all the way around this disc. That does mean while the most of it is moving away from us and not going to hit us, there should be something that a slight elevation to what is hit out there. And you can see there's a ripple. This slammed out. You can see the ripple moving back. So this slammed out and there's a ripple here. That goes all the way back around that disc. That means there's going to be something there that impacts us. It's not going to be large. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be something that impacts us. This is coming from 49. So this is moving out. And this is what's hard about this, because you're taking a 3D object and pushing it into a 2D picture. So 49 is here and it's moving out and away, and they have to push it sideways to show the movement, but it's coming more at us and out. Another for 51, 52. And you can see that's really strong. Now we've got a filament eruption or something right down here, and I'm not sure what that came from. But this is going to be wide and strong. You see it ticks up here, but it also comes halfway around the disc, more than halfway around the disc. This I would look for it to hit us. I think that will impact us if it's not moving down and away too much. And again, you can see it's moving at least a quarter of the way around that disc. So I would look for that to give some impact to us. Another one going out and away on our outgoing limb. So the majority we got one there's going to give us a tickle. So what does that mean as far as our forecast? I'm going to start off by saying I do not agree with this forecast. They've got it on a 24-hour cycle. Those were moving at about 400 kilometers per second. I would look for this to back up. I do not think it's going to hit here. They're saying it's going to hit here. I would move this back up to at least 36 hours. So I would look for this stuff to move back up into here and maybe into here, where it's going to see it hit in our daylight dark hours, and then this to move forward and hit in our dark hours. So I would say I don't expect much tonight. I do expect it tomorrow night. They're saying it's going to hit during the daylight hours. I'm going to say that wind speed is off. I think it's going to be closer to 30 to 36 hours. So I would back this up, and I would say probably by dark, we're going to have at least a 3 and overnight into some 4s. And then I would expect a repeat on the 3rd. And then depending on what we get today, we may see a repeat into the 4th. But I'm not looking at this to be heading as quick as the 24-hour period. So where they're looking at, oh, it's going to hit in 24 hours. This is moving exceptionally slow. I would back it up to the 36 hours, not the 24. So at best, I would look for it to hit on the 3rd, not the 2nd. that Embro spiral is about useless. We are seeing a rise in our magnometers. Right now, our wind speeds are above 400 kilometers per second, or about 400 kilometers per second. Our density is really good. Phi angle is going back and forth. Not doing much right now. And we'll just have to wait and see. I don't look for, again, anything tonight. It will be into tomorrow before anything is likely to show up, and more than likely it will be late into tomorrow, early into the 3rd, before we should expect to see anything. Probably into the day, the 3rd, and into the evening hours of the 3rd before I would safely say we could expect to see much. And it's not going to be huge. I would not expect this to go more than a KP5 at best. Once these 54 and 52, if we go back and look at this, oops, 54 and 52 in the next 24 hours are going to be more at a direction where anything they expel will hit us. So if they continue to erupt with these super dense eruptions like they're having right now, if those continue more than 24 hours, then we will start seeing an impact from those, and then we should start getting more of the superstorms. I don't know what NOAA is doing with their 24 or their 27-day forecast. Looking at the forecast right now, they have it buried at a solid 2. And I don't look for this to be right at all. I think what they're saying is there's no corona holes, so we cannot predict any corona hole activity. So we can't safely say there's going to be a KP5 at some point, and they're just not able to predict the sunspots, so there's no sunspot storm activity on here. But we're going to have activity throughout October from sunspots, just not from corona holes, if that makes sense. So look for this to be another active month, just like September was. It's just going to be short-term predictions. So don't think that we're not going to get activity just because this says KP2 all month. It means the activity is going to be coming from sunspots, not corona holes. So keep your eyes open. These sunspots, as they move around, if they survive their rotation around the disk, is when they can be monsters. They can fall apart or they can get bigger. It just depends. No, remember the peak times we had last month are going to be the peak times we have again 3 days earlier. So when we had activity on the 7th, you're looking for it to happen around the 13th or 14th, or the 14th or the 15th. Kind of use that as your guide. What peaks we had, back it up 3 days. All right, I'm going to leave you with that. Remember, NOAA is not going to be right. Don't use your KP value to gauge whether you are going to be right or wrong. This is a Space Weather Live page. We look at your wind speed. Right now we're at 425. That's a good wind speed. Our density is kind of low, 273. BT is not bad. And then we're at a southerly BZ, which is good. That's a negative number. It's not a great negative number, but it is a negative number. So we want it to be to the south, or to a negative number for us to see it. Remember, we're north. We want it to be the opposite polarity, so we need it to be south. Remember playing with the old bar magnets in school? The same polarity will reject and push away. So if the polarity of the wind is coming at us and it's a north, it's going to push it away and not allow it into our poles. But if the polarity of the wind is a south, then it's going to come into our poles and it's going to pull together. And it's going to pull it into our poles. So we want a southerly BZ, the opposite polarity for our North Pole. So we want to get that opposite. So don't look at the KP. You want a combination. You always need your BZ to be south right now. Until we undergo the full magnetic pole shift, right now you need it to be the south. The negative number has to be to the for our purposes right now. After our magnetic pole shift on Earth, then it will become a positive because we'll be a negative. But right now we're a positive, so it needs a negative. So we need it to be to the south. We need a fairly dense, a fairly decent BT number, but here's where you want the numbers to be good. And these seesaw, you can have really low density but have a really good wind speed and get a good show. Likewise, you might have really slow wind speed but have a 17 density and you might get a fantastic auroral show. These don't have to be a set pattern here. It just has to be the right balance of numbers here. So you could have a mediocre wind speed of 500 and a mediocre density and get a good show. Or you could have a mediocre wind speed and have a fantastic density and get an out of the box show. These numbers are not, these two numbers are not set in stone. They fluctuate and it will be, they will go up and down. But by the time they hit over 450 wind speed and you have a density of 3 or 4, that's when you want to go look for auroras. And you want to look for holes in the clouds right now because it's fall. These pockets of clouds are small and isolated. We get isolated storms that move through instead of big patterns of clouds sometimes. So fall storms tend to be pocketed. They don't tend to be great big lines of storms. They tend to be pocketed. And you can get in and get isolated storms and the clouds can have holes in them and they can make some interesting texture to auroral photography. So the rule is still get out and look. If you've got decent wind speed, somewhat decent density, you have the positive BZ or the negative BZ, that's where you get out there and look. That KP value right now, it's so not dependable. It's not even what you should be looking at. It's not worth looking at it because it's going to steer you wrong. And you're going to end up missing a good show because it's not updating as fast as your other numbers are. So throw away the KP. It's only a guide to tell you, oh, I might see something at that time. And start watching your numbers. Watch the real-time data for whether you should or should not be out there. Because that KB value is going to steer you wrong every time. because NOAA is not getting it right now at all. They're coming later and slower, and they're not updating that KP value like they should. And I've noticed that the last couple storms, the real numbers are updating, the KP numbers are updating delayed, sometimes by an hour. So if you're looking at that KP to jump and you're sitting there waiting for that KP jump, it jumped an hour before it showed up. And you're missing out. So don't look at the KP, look at the actual numbers. Now, I will tell you, I am using, let me see, downloads here. I am using Aurora Alerts. This is what Aurora Alert looks like. I've got my wind speed. I have my BZ right here. This dial is my BZ. This is my density, and this is my BT. This number right here tells me it's this far off the horizon. And right now, if it's telling you it's like under 10% on the horizon, you're not going to get much because it's below the fog line. If it's below 10%, right now, we have a humidity line right now in the fall. If it's, below that 10% line, it's probably going to be buried under that fog line, that humidity line. And we still have smoke and humidity lying close to the horizon. So it's got to be up there, getting up above 10% for you to really be able to see it. This is your KP value. I have noticed that KP is not jumping when the actual numbers change. It's delaying. This app is better than watching the actual pages for NOAA and Space Weather Live, because they are not updating their KP as fast as what some other places are. This also tells you whether you have how much clouds, how much clear skies, and whether you're going to see them. This does not always update, but they tell you what you're looking at. This isn't always as accurate as it should be, but they give you what it should be in the next, day, 24 hours. Based on what NOAA is saying, this is what NOAA is saying, and they tick through this. And they also have a graph that gives you the real-time data and shows you the real-time things, but I don't have that. But that's Aurora Alert. That is the one I use. This is my go-to when I'm out and about. I like it because it keeps me updated. It's my go-to. All right, I'm going to leave you there. Again, I would not look for anything tonight. I would look for it, and I would not look at NOAA to be right tomorrow. I would maybe look into tomorrow night. Maybe something's going to pop tomorrow night based on the activity that came on the 29th. But I would not be pushing what came on the 30th to show up the 29th or tomorrow. If they're pushing the idea that stuff is going to moving in 24 hours, I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be on a 36-hour time schedule. Maybe a little bit slower because these wind speeds are super slow. So plan accordingly when you see something. Say, okay, I saw that's going to hit 36 hours from now. Unless that wind speed is over 1,000 miles an hour, or kilometers per second, excuse me. kilometers per second. If it's under kilometers per second, keep it at 36 hours, or maybe even a little more than 36 hours. To figure out when it's going to hit. Okay? And we should start seeing more in the next 24 hours, maybe 36. As 51, 52 get rotated in a little bit farther, they're going to start impacting us more. And I look for those to be more active in the next day and grazing us more. As long as those stay active like they are, then we have a good shot at getting hit. All right. You all have a good day.